So today we will interview few people regarding the architecture of Oceania. So the first question is, what is Oceania? Can you explain a little bit about Oceania itself?
Oceania is considered to be a region center of the island of the tropical Pacific Ocean. It consists of many islands in the tropical Pacific Ocean. Oceania is further divided into the three sub-regions of Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia. The name of Oceania is used rather than Australia because, unlike the other continental grouping, it is the ocean rather than the continent that link the nation together. Oceania is the smallest continental grouping in land area and the second smallest after Antarctica in population.
So my second question to you is, which countries belong to Oceania itself? Which country belongs to Oceania? Australia, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Fiji, Solomon Island, Vanuatu, Samoa, Kiribati, Tonga, Federated States of Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Palau, Tuvalu, Nauru, and Guam. Yes, that's all. And the third question would be, what are the characteristics of the architecture of your part of Oceania itself?
Over in New Zealand, the situation is far more favorable. First off, the tribe that inhabits this island nation, the Maori, were explorers themselves. Let's just say it takes a colonist to know how to expand. Therefore, they had the skills and knowledge to build sturdier, permanent structures to house their people that fortunately were passed on to this day. Originating from the warm and humid Polynesian islands, which is a topic for another day, the Maori had to quickly adapt to their traditional Polynesian dwellings to the colder climate of New Zealand, since New Zealand is way down south. Early on during their colonization, they moved about, retaining their traditional sense of island building construction. For example, using reeds and vines to create buildings. A common structure was known as the ware, or ware. I'm butchering that, so who cares? Literally, sleeping house was a small hut with no windows, a small doorway, floor mats, low roofs, and earth insulation. These kept the cold out, and during winter, the people usually had a small fire inside the buildings to keep the settlers warm. As the Maoris settled into the islands, the wares grew bigger to support larger families, something the Australians could not do, unfortunately. Over time, the Maoris developed a proper tribal society as any prospering colonizing culture would be, and so did their buildings. The Maoris expressed themselves clearly through wooden carvings and architecture, as is normal for many tribal cultures, most spectacular of which is the Ware Wakairo, literally carving or carved large house, which serve as a communal house for the tribe to meet and is always the focus of a marae, communal ground. Interesting fact, the people do not bring food into Mare, and bring food, but they cannot bring food into the Wakairo. These often had gabled roof with a carved plank, a large carved plank, which has normally face motifs on it, symbolizing the head, symbolizing a head of an ancestor. The Maoris were very they revered the ancestors very much, to the point where their buildings can symbolize an ancestor of theirs. Let's say the top plank. It's the top plank of the gable roof symbolizes the head, while the diagonal beach boards symbolize the hands. There are names on it, but they had names for it, but I don't have that kind of data here right now. So it had a gabled roof, raised flooring, and normally tribes would just leave the raised floorings empty as storage space, but not the Maoris. Usually they covered it up with a wall and had carvings on it which told of stories or had motives of animals and nature, especially the Maoris' favorite motifs of nature, which is the earth, wind and water, or the ocean, since they're seafaring people. Most of the time these wall carvings would be under the veranda. They had verandas, yes, of the Wakairo or their houses, and inside the building is supported by columns and rafters, symbolizing the rafters symbolized ribs, while the central column symbolized the heart of a building. Many times flat sections of wood inside and outside of the Wakairo would be carved, retelling stories and legends of their ancestors and warriors. Since very normally in tribal culture, the people themselves they have pride as warrior poets, retelling stories of great conquests and exploration to forsaken lands, so that they may pass on their culture to their younger generations, which fortunately it did up until now. And now New Zealand architecture is teeming with contemporary styles of Maori architecture, although these times without the raised platforms, opting instead for hard, sturdy concrete floors. There are many more tribes around Australasia, but were largely overlooked by explorers, either European, Oriental, or just the Polynesians themselves, because one, like the Australians, they couldn't build anything of notice. Two, they were mostly of the same culture, being colonized by Polynesians from their homeland of Polynesia out in the Solomon Islands down south towards New Zealand. And many of the ones that stayed in the warm and humid Polynesias did not expand of sorts, since they were still technically in the same climate, and had no enemies and competition of sorts. The Maoris were special. They went to a place with completely different climate. So the Maoris were the few civilizations in Australasia to prosper before the advent of the European colonization, partly due to the fact that they're also colonists themselves. It takes one to know one, if you know what I mean. Therefore, were able to preserve their culture and history all the way to modern times. So, in conclusion, history can be consumed by progress if the people do not appreciate their own history and culture, and do not think of it enough, or could not think of it enough, to spread it to their younger generations for safekeeping. And
Which part of Oceania that you covered? Can you explain a little bit about your part?
Australasia is made up of Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and thousands of small islands in the South Pacific Ocean. The name Australia is derived from a Latin australis, meaning of the south. Most of Australia lies on the southern portion of the Indo-Australian plate, flanked by the Indian Ocean on the west and the Southern Ocean to the south. Much of Australia is desert or semi-arid. Only the southeast and the southwest corner of the continent have a temperate climate and moderately fertile soil. As the majority of Australia is desert or semi-arid, erosion has heavily weathered its surface, resulting in one of the flattest countries in the world. Australia also has the oldest and the least fertile soil, and is the driest inhabited continent.
What are the similarities between the architecture with Malaysia? Can you explain a little bit about it? Few features that are similar within the building. First and foremost, purpose of the building is itself. With the purpose of the building itself. Most of these tribes do agriculture as a living. So where do they keep all the food supplies and prevent it from getting destroyed? For Maori tribe, they kept all the food supply inside a hut called pataka. This hut is raised above ground level to prevent from predator entering, often on one or more poles, and reached by a removable ladders or ramp. Pataka often represented the wealth and prestige of the tribe and were richly carved, especially around the entrance. So moving on to the part of Malaysia, Bidayuh House has the similar purpose with the pataka. In Bidayuh, the hut is called beri. It suits the purpose as it stores food supply and it also raised above ground level. Moving on, the roof itself. Pataka also has a gable roof design. Gable roof are the kind that the children always draw. They have two sloping sides that together as a ridge, creating an wall and with triangular extension called a gable. It is similar with the houses around Malaysia such as Malay house, Rumah Panjang or Baruk. All of these traditional houses have the similar gable design. Finally, the ornamentation or the wood carving around the house. So for Maori tribe, according to legend, carving was discovered by Red Pupuke, when rescued his son Manuhuru from the carved underwater village of Tangaroa, the god of sea. Elaborately carved pataka showed the tribe mana and wealth. Maori carving developed its own unique style, including the curved patterns and spiral inspired by New Zealand plants such as fern. Similar with the traditional houses in Malaysia, they have the wood carving ornamentation around the houses to show the status social of the tribe. Yeah, that's great. So that's all from us for today. Thank you. Back to the studio. Back to the